Today, I'm talking about the 2002 film adaptation of the smash Broadway musical, Chicago.
Chicago.
Chicago and I have an excellent relationship. I've been lucky enough to be a part of 2 productions in my life, and I think it's an almost perfect musical, and I think that the film adaptation is one of the best film adaptations of a musical ever put on screen. The film was directed by Rob Marshall, who does a number of great film adaptations of musicals, including the adaptation of 9 and Into the Woods, and it has a score by John Kander and Fred Ebb. Kander and Ebb are some of my favorite composers on the musical circuit because they have a tendency to set their musicals in the style and the world of the era in which their musical takes place. For instance, their musical Cabaret takes place in late 30s, early 40s Berlin, and the style of performance that was popular at that time was cabarets. So every number is kind of evoking that era and that style. Chicago, which takes place in the Roaring 20s, uses vaudeville to tell its story, and every number is a vaudeville act in some regard. The story is pretty loose, pretty fun, but also tackles really dark themes and makes you think in a way that you're not quite always expecting. It's about a young girl named Roxy Hart. Roxy has giant aspirations and dreams of fame and of being a performer. And this kind of mirrors another person, Velma Kelly, who is a successful performer, who is also on trial for murder. And they sort of have a dynamic of fan and performer, kind of an All About Eve sort of thing, where Roxy wants to learn from Velma, and Velma wants to push Roxy away because she's stealing her limelight. And it kind of is a really cool mirror to how the courtroom and the darker aspects of life also mirror show business. The performances in this film are some of my favorite things about it. The style and everything that Bob Fosse, who directed the original production, set gets carried over into this film, and they really did a good job casting actors who are big Hollywood names, but also are wonderful performers and are actual triple threats. Standouts are Catherine Zeta-Jones as Velma Kelly, who won an Oscar for Best Supporting Actress for her performance. She does such a good job of putting you right into the era of the 1920s. I always say that the opening number, All That Jazz, is one of the most perfect opening numbers to a musical ever. And that's because the lyrics do a really good job of evoking that era and style.
Come on, babe, why don't we paint the town? And all that jazz.
Find a Fell Ask, I'm Playing Fast and Loose, Shimmy Till Her Garters Break, Lucky Lindy Never Flew So High, who's Lindbergh, who flew across America. All these things kind of plant little seeds of that era of the Roaring 20s without a bunch of characters having to deliver exposition or without anything but a fantastic, entertaining number. Another standout performer is Renee Zellweger, who is an excellent actress and also a phenomenal dancer. And Roxy gets a bit more of a bumpy road in her performance. Velma Kelly stays a bit more flatline in her feelings and her arc, but Roxy really gets to move around and start as this kind of wide-eyed, hopeful girl, turned murderess, turned woman who grows into fame and notoriety, and she does a great job playing all of these levels. One thing I also really love about this film adaptation is some of the divergences it takes from the musical. Again, with that opening number, in the musical, Roxy is less fleshed out in the opening number. We see her, having this affair with Fred Casely and then murdering him. And we only get a couple lines in there that establish this. In the film, we are introduced to her as she's watching Velma Kelly perform, and there's a wonderful moment where she sees herself on stage as Velma Kelly.
That
Let's go.
And we instantly get that idea across that she desires to be this person and desires to have this notoriety and fame. They also add an element in that Fred Casely is telling Roxy to kind of get in her pants that he works at the club, or that he knows people at the club and could maybe get her on stage or get her a job there, which adds to some of the motivation for Roxy to shoot him when she finds out he's a dirty liar who's about to walk out on her. Another cool divergence that the film takes from the musical, and one thing I want to note is that a lot of times divergences from the musicals frustrate me, and I think that this film uses these really well, and it only enhances the movie. And I also, doesn't mean that I find any really flaws in the musical. It just means that I think they knew when they were making a motion picture how to take those elements and move them around at their advantage. One thing they move around is the tap dance number. In the musical, the tap dance number is done to introduce the character of Billy Flynn, and it's performed by 3 ensemble numbers, and again is just a bit of a vaudeville act to mirror what's going on in a scene between Billy Flynn and Roxy's husband, Amos. In the film, they move the tap number to the courtroom scene when Billy Flynn is wooing the courtroom, and they use that to mirror his silver tongue way around the jury. And I think this works really, really well because we are able to see that there's something almost mythical about Billy Flynn in the courtroom, and there's something more than just what he's saying going on there.
Mr. Flynn! I agree, Your Honor! It is enough!
The musical numbers are so enhanced, and the Broadway versions have differed a bit. The original production, which was directed by Bob Fosse, had high levels of camp, had lots of set pieces and moving parts. The revival, which was choreographed by Anne Reinking, who was Fosse's lover and protege, and who took a lot of his ideals and choreography into the revival, they decided to pare down the show a lot in the revival and make it more about the performance, about the dance, and about the story. And both ideas work really well, and I feel like this film kind of merges the two in a cool way. We still get these over-the-top numbers, and we get lavish costumes, we get set pieces, we get the world of the 20s, which I think was something from the original production that's lost a bit in the revival. But we also get sort of this dark, jazzy seediness that the revival found.
I guess I can keep this then. Nice try.
More standout performances are Queen Latifah, who is just emanating pure musical theater in this film. She does such a great job of being catty and being her wonderful self, and playing this corrupt welcome to the dollhouse mama.
Don't shoot your fat ass mouth off to me, because I don't give a shit. Now move it out.
John C. Reilly as Amos, who is Mr. Cellophane and does that wonderful number, Mr. Cellophane. Richard Gere does an excellent job of playing Billy Flynn. The original production was Jerry Orbach in the role, and I love Jerry Orbach's singing and acting. And I think the thing about Richard Gere is he brings this really sly, sexy version of Billy Flynn to the forefront. And it works in that regard of finding this man so charming that, he wins every case. One of my favorite things about Candor and Ebb is their ability to insert meaty bits of philosophy or something that hits a little heavier into their very loud, brash musical numbers. For instance, in the song Roxy, which is all about vanity and about Roxy coming into her own as a performer and as a star, she says, I love the audience and they love me, and
We love each other. And that's because none of us got enough love in our childhoods. And that's showbiz.
kid. And I've always found that to be a wonderful little sneaky line about people in show business and about what we are really after when we're seeking out entertainment. And we all have something lacking in our lives, and I think when we turn to a piece or a film or theater or anything, we're looking to maybe fill a little bit of a void. And I think it's a brilliant and profound thing in such a, again, vain and brash musical number. The other things that I love, I could go on and on and on about. I just think this film is fantastic. I think the scenic design, the costumes, sound, everything, firing on all cylinders. And I think you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't check this film out at some point. Check out 2002's Chicago.
That jazz.